Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host 𝙒𝙖𝙩𝙤. California's AB 2282 bill just passed, and there is a very interesting use of phrase in this bill, and this is essentially an extension to an existing bill, and they added a few more things. Unfortunately, there was one phrase that they added to say that anyone having Nazi swastikas displaying it in public places are liable to be prosecuted. I'm not having the exact wordage of how the bill reads, but this bill has passed in the California state now, and we as Sanatanis, we know swastika is not what it means to be, but more importantly, what does this mean for the rest of United States and, for that matter, the rest of the world? Today, I have with me Nikunj Trivedi, president of CoHNA, and Nikunj is not a stranger to our audience. And Nikunj has done a fair amount of work, setting right this context, talking to people, trying to tell them that you need to look at this in a slightly different way. And we did get a few successes. To understand what we got and what we did not, let's invite Nikunj Trivedi to our channel. Nikunji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel. Nikunji, namaskar. How are you?
Great. Always a pleasure to be on PGurus, and I want to thank you for giving us the platform and the opportunity to have this important conversation about Bill AB 2282 on swastika.
So, Nikunji, let's start from where the thing started. What was the need felt to add this particular verbiage to an existing law, and from there, when did we get involved? We, as in Sanatanis of United States, in fact, many others also, and what changed, and so on and so forth. And then we can go into a more in-depth discussion about this whole concept of the word Nazi Swastika. So take it away, sir.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And by the way, I want to clarify one thing. The bill has only passed assembly. It hasn't become into law yet in California.
Oh, I stand corrected.
Yeah, so It's very important that people understand it's only gone through assembly. So it has to go through Senate. There might be some revisions in Senate. Then, the Senate will pass it, and then it'll finally end up on the governor's desk. And then the governor will have to sign it into law. So that's really important for us to understand. So first step is done. It's the assembly has passed it, unfortunately. Now let's talk about the context a little bit. Many people are confused as to why all of a sudden all these things are going on in the U.S. And by the way, not just the U.S., but around the world. First of all, it's very important for us to understand that hate crimes are on the rise, and hate crimes against whether it's Jews or African Americans or even minority Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Asian Americans in general are generally on the rise. So there has been a sort of a impetus to either ban or condemn hate in general, right? So this has been going on for last few years. The idea of introducing legislator to sort of condemn or ban symbols of hate has been around for a few years. Just to kind of rewind a little bit, most people might not be aware that the state of New York, as well as in California, the word swastika has been inserted into symbols of hate for not now, but for many years. I'm talking about 90s and even mid-2000s, okay? Unfortunately, many of the Hindus were not aware of these things. And when they started to think about this, now all of the last few years, we've been sort of more aware, and we have been challenging this and saying, hey, swastika is not a symbol of hate. That is really the Hakenkreuz or the hooked cross. So just to put that context, that is not something new that has just come up, but the rush to pass legislations, the rush to pass bills has become more and more urgent over the last few years from vulnerable communities. So there is we fully support and understand where these communities, including our community, is coming from, right? We stand with our Jewish, our Jewish folks, our partners, as well as the entire community, to condemn the symbol of death and destruction, which is the Nazi Hakenkreuz or the hooked cross. But at the same time, the Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains have been very clear on the fact that we want to differentiate between what is a symbol of hate, which is the Hakenkreuz or the hooked cross, versus the symbol of peace, well-being, and prosperity and auspiciousness, which is swastika, right? The word itself means 𝙒𝙖𝙩𝙤𝙦, that which is good. So you can't have a word, that which is good, associated with hate. And we'll talk about that, how this context had come about. But I just wanted to put that out there. So what we are telling people is that we have been very consistent with our position, that we don't want our swastika to be connected with any kind of hatred, because that is the wrong way. This is a historic opportunity to change that. So for the past 2 years, since the state of New York, we have started to talk about this. So there has been an agreement between Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain organizations. We have launched a swastika education and awareness campaign, and we have various partners that we have been working with, some of the more prominent organizations and temples, monasteries, and things like that from these communities. So there has been a general awareness and sort of an agreement that we will not be comfortable having the word swastika or the word Nazi swastika in any legislation. If those do exist, they have to be clarified that swastika is a symbol of peace, well-being, and prosperity for nearly 2 billion Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains, as well as similar symbols like Native Americans are using, things like that. If they
It's been around for thousands of years, for God's sake.
Over 10,000. So see, the Indian, there's an Indian Institute of Technology, I think it's Kharagpur, if I'm not mistaken. They actually did a research on this. They found that the swastika is actually probably 14 or 15,000 years old. Okay, so it's a very, very old symbol that has been around for a long time. The problem was that we were not the owners of this dialogue, right? India was not independent. We were still under the British rule. So everything that was decided about the quote unquote swastika was through the colonial lens and through Western narratives. Only over the years, very recently, including myself, 2 years ago, I was myself not aware of the fact that Hitler never used the word swastika. Only after I spent 6 months of deep research, going into original Mein Kampf, going into Nazi propaganda materials, etc., to find out that Hitler never ever used the word swastika. So once you find that truth out, you have to fight for the truth. 𝙒𝙗𝙖𝙩𝙤𝙦, at the end of the day, we will fight for the truth, no matter what it is. So Hitler never used the word swastika, and I'm going to have a short presentation to talk about that too in a bit. But I just wanted to kind of put the context out there. And our ask is not very hard. Our ask is very simple. We don't want swastika to be ostracized, to be abused, to be banned, to be misused, all of those things. And we don't want anything Nazi connected to swastika, period. So what we are asking for people to do is talk to your senators, state senators in California, reach out to lawmakers and let them know that these are the concerns that we have. What we want is an adjustment in the language of the bill, because this is a historic opportunity for California to make something really, really important happen. And I know there are ways to do this. There have been excuses given that, oh, the penal code has it this way, so we must refer to it. Well, I'll go into that in a second also, because the penal code just inserted a bunch of things that were not there before. So why can't they insert a few more things? So we'll talk about that.
Absolutely. And this is for everyone. Viewer, senators, people everywhere around the world. You need to understand how this quiet mischief starts getting perpetrated. It starts in one state or one legislature, sometimes one city council, and slowly but steadily you'll start seeing it creeping. And this is just another way of saying that a toolkit is being put into play. So Nikunj, please go ahead and take it away, and you can start the presentation and we'll take it from there, and let's see how things go.
So I wanted to kind of just showcase everybody what what this context is. The first and foremost question a lot of our community members have is this one. They're confused with the fact that Hitler probably used the word swastika, and I was under the same impression. So what I did was I did some research, and I spent about 6 months, like I said, going through original texts and things like that, and reading works by various scholars. So if you look at the original Mein Kampf verses, okay, it very clearly reveals that Hitler never used the word swastika, but always used the word Hakenkreuz, which is English translation called hooked cross. So here are 3 lines from there. It's very simple. You can see, and I don't read German, but if you take a look at it, I've highlighted 3 words, the Hakenkreuz. So you can clearly see there is no word in there called swastika. All right. So what happened here? The first English translation, which was done by E.T.S. Dugdale, I believe it's in 1938 or so, roughly, he used the correct word. But unfortunately, what happened was his was the abridged version that never became popular. So he actually used the translation from Hakenkreuz to hooked cross. Okay. He never used the word swastika. Subsequent translators, such as Irish Catholic priest and journalist James Vincent Murphy, started to use the word swastika. And then the New York Times also popularized the word swastika. Even the New York Times, as we'll see in a bit, did not use the word swastika before. At some point, it decided to switch over for various different reasons. So again, the idea is swastika is not a German word. If you look at some of the Nazi pictures and things like that, the source of this word, Hitler was never using this word. But also, it's very important to understand that, again, swastika, for those who are not Hindu or not familiar, is used only by 3 religions, or at least maybe there's a 4th one too, but let's say the Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains. Swastika is essentially a copyrighted word, I would say. So anybody who uses words outside, so Native Americans tend to use whirling logs, there's Phil Fought, all these different things. Just because a symbol looks the same doesn't mean it's exactly the same. So context matters and the usage of words matter. So the swastika, the word itself, is used by those traditions that have Sanskrit as their base, okay? And it's very important to keep in mind, and as well I'll show in a bit, how the Hakenkreuz is the one who, the symbol that brought death and destruction, and not the swastika. The German language, there is no word swastika, and I'm going to show that in a second. What's also important is the connection with Christianity. Hitler was a devout Christian, and he always used the idea of Christianity to persecute Jews or to persecute like people who were not of the pure quote unquote Aryan blood. The word Aryan also being used in a misnomer way. He called Christ, Jesus Christ, as the Aryan Christ. And that's how you can see the connection between his Christian beliefs. And so what we can say, he misappropriated a symbol, but he misappropriated the Christian cross as the hooked cross, not the swastika. If you are familiar with German language, you don't have to be, but if you are, the German language has a lot of different words ending with Kreuz. So here I have listed various words. Notice that none of these words contain the word swastika. You have the Christian Kreuz, which is the Christian cross, Hakenkreuz, like I said, hooked cross, Ritterkreuz, which is knight cross, Balkenkreuz, beam cross, Winkelkreuz, angle cross, Krummkreuz, crooked cross. So where do you see swastika here? The answer is you don't. If you read media from about 100 years ago, they were very, very clear that the Hitler symbol was called the Hakenkreuz. And I'm going to show some examples here. These 2 articles that you see here on the left side, they are actually from the New York Times of 1922, where this person, the author, the writer, is actually talking about the rise of Hitler and the attack on the Catholics, the Catholic newspaper. So there's a newspaper called the Hakenkreuz Banner, which was the Nazi propaganda newspaper. And notice what they're saying, the word called Hakenkreuz Banner and not swastika banner. There is no such word as swastika banner. It's Hakenkreuz banner. Similarly, the clip on the middle side shows, again from New York Times, that Hitler's followers were known as the Hakenkreuzlers. And this is true. When Hitler was just becoming prominent, his followers were known as the Hakenkreuzlers, not some swastika people. Okay, and similarly, again, his movement was called the Hakenkreuz movement, and you can see highlighted in red. This is an excerpt from the New York Times back about 100 years ago. So you can see, and then this guy Gerard Cohen, he was one of the Nazi propagandists, and I believe he was an officer within the Nazi party. He created this book, and look what the title is: Christian Kreuz und Hakenkreuz, which means the Christ cross or the Christian cross and the hooked cross. They're not putting the word swastika here. So you can see that they were very, very clear that this is not a swastika. It's actually the hooked cross or Hakenkreuz. Why would 60 million Christians, and Germany was one of the most, one of the most sort of like Christian conservative countries, why would they actually empathize with a foreign symbol that's coming from thousands of miles away versus their own symbol at home, which is the cross?
Nikunj, if you could humor me and go back to the previous slide.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. I want all the lawmakers of California who are about to sit in Senate and vote reflect what I'm just about to say. You are going to, let's say, pass this thing verbatim without any changes. Something, someone on the street can still use the Hakenkreuz and say that this law doesn't apply to them, because they can use the same argument that we are putting, saying that, look, if you had put Hakenkreuz, then you are going to prevent us from using this. But you did not.
Yeah, they put it one time. I think they can do more. So we'll talk about that in a bit as well. And this is really important point that you mentioned, 𝙒𝙖𝙦. So
thank you.
So just to continuing, here's the Jewish Daily Bulletin Index. Okay, this is a prominent Jewish bulletin of 1925. Notice the word Hakenkreuz, I have highlighted in yellow. There are 18 mentions of the word Hakenkreuz, 0 mention of the word swastika. So even a Jewish bulletin in 1925 is using the word Hakenkreuz. For example, it talks about the Hakenkreuzlers, the movement, or the followers of Hitler were at a Vienna rally disrupting a women's march. They were harassing women, they were molesting Jews. So there's a lot of different mentions, and every single time they mention that. And notice this is in English. So this is not in German. This is in English, and they have not used the word swastika. They only use the word Hakenkreuz. So even a prominent Jewish bulletin from 1925 is using the word Hakenkreuz. Why do we have to use the word swastika again and again? And then finally, most people don't realize what the issue is here in terms of using the word Nazi swastika. You have Hinduphobes like Professor Audrey Truschke who insist on the fact that Hitler stole swastika from India. This is what she's saying. So she's pushing her sort of anti-Hindu narrative and sort of basically firing back at us because we protested with this against the California's decision and said that Hitler never called his symbol of death as swastika. He only called it Hakenkreuz. So she's basically pushing back and saying, no, Hitler stole swastika from India. So you can see Hinduphobes using this and then attacking us, saying that, oh, the Hindu right wing is pressuring California legislators to, with misinformation. The only person spreading misinformation and Hinduphobia here is Professor Audrey Truschke. Similarly, a group known as Hindus for Human Rights. They may sound Hindu, but they have been essentially aligned with a lot of anti-Hindu elements and groups out there. Notice what they had said. We definitely supported the banning of Nazi swastika, but if you look at the two symbols, they are different. So essentially what they're saying is there's a good swastika and a bad swastika. The good swastika is the Hindu swastika and the bad swastika is the Nazi swastika. And this is exactly what California is doing, which we'll talk about in a second. So what's the issue with the California Bill 2282? Let's talk about that briefly. This bill, and we have been following this bill since the past few months. There was discussions around February. There was a press release by Rebecca Bauer-Cowan, who's the assemblywoman out of Sacramento, who introduced this bill in the assembly to strengthen the punishment that is given for symbols of terror. So there are 3 symbols of terror according to her. One is the swastika, one is the burning cross, and the third one is the noose. Okay. Now I use the word swastika because if you look at the fine print here at the top left side, they actually say hate crimes, nooses, crosses, and swastikas. So I'm not using our word, I'm using their word. Now, the second thing, that the challenge there was that we started to push back, and we were trying to work with her office to suggest certain, I would say, changes to this language. So what they did was they started to compromise this. Okay, so they decided to insert the word Nazi Hakenkreuz. You see on the left side, this is an excerpt. Section 11411 of the Penal Code is amended to read blah blah blah. It says the display of the Nazi Hakenkreuz or hook cross, also known as the Nazi swastika, that was the official emblem of the Nazi party. Now you can see the problem here. Yes, great. They put that, and they of course said that we separate this from the ancient swastika that is associated with Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, and are symbols of peace. So in this particular section, California just basically told us that there's a good swastika and a bad swastika. So a law is deciding which swastika is good and which swastika is bad. So the Nazi swastika, according to this law, is the bad swastika, while the ancient swastikas is the good swastika that is used by Hindu. So that's not acceptable to us. There is only one swastika. There is no bad or good swastika. The second thing, and this was not in if you look at the original penal code, which was back in mid-2000s or something, that never had the words, that was the official emblem of the Nazi party. That doesn't exist. While the reference to Nazi swastika exists in the original penal code, these words don't exist. So now what the new language has done is basically saying there is such a thing as Nazi swastika, and that was the official emblem of the Nazi party. But we saw earlier that the original emblem of the Nazi party is the Hakenkreuz and not the Nazi swastika. So they continue to use the word, and now they're adding more stuff to it to make it even firmer that yes, the Nazi swastika was the official emblem of the Nazi party, which is completely false based on the scholarship that we have collected, scholarship that exists out there, and evidence we just showed. Now, notice what happens is the word Nazi Hakenkreuz is only used once, while in the entire bill, 4 to 5 times they use the word Nazi swastika. So when people say, oh, you know, it's a good thing they started to use the word Nazi Hakenkreuz, well, they only use the word once. There's also an argument that says that, oh, you know, we can't, they have to refer to the original bill, which was the original penal code, to make changes to this bill. Okay, great. If that's the case, then a few things. Number one is they don't have to keep mentioning Nazi swastika again and again. They can keep it one time. But just like how they added these words, that was the official emblem of the Nazi party, why can't they add words like says incorrectly known as the Nazi swastika? Because then it clarifies it in the law or in this language that says what you are seeing here, rather than saying also known as the Nazi swastika, they can simply add incorrectly known as the Nazi swastika. So that's what we are really asking for. So we're not asking for a lot of big overhauls and changes, and we are actually, our intent is to support the bill once the language is changed and modified according to what we would like to see, because that's an equitable and inclusive language for all parties. We are condemning the right symbol. We are not distinguishing between a symbol of a good swastika and a bad swastika. That such doesn't exist. There is only one swastika, which is the good swastika, and that's it. There is no bad swastika. Swastika itself means that which is good, that which is prosperous and auspicious. And then finally, as I mentioned, just want to summarize the main issues with Bill AB 2282. It defines a good swastika and a bad swastika in its current state. It continues to perpetuate the idea and the false association of swastika with hatred by using words like Nazi swastika, but doesn't clarify that the word Nazi swastika is incorrect. It doesn't remove it, but actually adds this whole idea that the Nazi swastika was the official emblem of the Nazi party, which is also false, because as we saw, it's really the Hakenkreuz that was the official emblem of the Nazi party. And finally, most people know or don't know, I'm not sure if people know, but California, whatever happens in California can have a huge impact around the US, around the world, around many cities that are really looking to pass similar legislation. So when people say that, let's modify this right now, and then, we'll work on modifying the language ultimately at the next time, maybe next year or 2 years or 3 years later, guess what? The boat or the ship is already going to sail, because no one's going to care about that. Once this passes in California, maybe New York, maybe Maryland, maybe New Jersey, maybe other places, Washington, Oregon, Arizona, you pick, they will start to use the same language or similar language, because they'll say, hey, California, one of the biggest states, just passed this law. Let's just use the same language. So how many people, how many places are we going to chase around? Does our community have the resources to go around sort of like playing whack-a-mole and going this every single place and just hitting that whack-a-mole? It's not going to work for us. So let's fix it in one place and then let it have a ripple effect in other places. We have already seen this in New York. We worked, many organizations, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain organizations worked in New York and in unison to say that there is no such thing as Nazi swastika. There is swastika, and then there is Hakenkreuz. If you are going to use the word Nazi swastika, it has to follow with the prefix that says incorrectly known or falsely known as Nazi swastika, because that is the truth. So I will stop here. Context and use of words matter, and that's what we are really fighting for.
That was a very telling presentation, Nikunj, and I have a simple question. Whatever research that you have unearthed, surely the office of the good congresswoman would have also found out. How did this deliberate mischief creep in?
So unfortunately, what happened was, we were trying to work with them, and I have emails suggesting the change of language. I even said that just remove swastika in general, just put the words Nazi emblem or Nazi hate symbol. which is because that is correct, right? Why do you even need the word swastika? But they came back and says, well, the penal code needs to have this reference. So I said, okay, then why don't we put incorrectly or falsely known as Nazi swastika, because that is the truth. So we were working on this. Unfortunately, they decided not to take that, take our feedback, and they decided to move forward. Now, there are two trains of thought here. Unfortunately, we have our position for the past 2 years has been very consistent and clear that we want to make sure that the words Nazi swastika are not used, and if they are used in the context to show that this is a false usage of the word. Okay, but unfortunately, we were all in sync on this thing. But now there's a camp out there that basically says that let's let's compromise on one side. At least this change is good for now. We will work on in the next few years to change this thing forward. I'm not sure I buy that, or CoHNA doesn't buy that, and some of our Buddhist partners and Jain partners don't buy that either, because how do we know when it's going to change in the future, right? Do we have sympathetic ear? Do we have, and like I said, once it's passed in California, where do you go around the entire country to then play whack-a-mole and sort of like hit this issue in different places? We're not going to have the resources. So that's been our position consistently for the past 2 years. So we haven't changed our position. Unfortunately, others may have decided to change their positions, but we haven't changed our position, and we are in sync with our Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain partners.
Now, I'm hoping that some of the lawmakers will get to see this video. It's not very long, but it does answer all the questions, and it sets the facts down. This is all published matter. It's less than 100 years old. So there should be no doubt about all these things. And let us do that small change that CoHNA is asking for. And I think everybody is going to be happy with that. We have to wait and see how this plays out. But what you said about whack-a-mole is spot on, Nikunj. You cannot be chasing state after state. It has to be fixed at the Gangotri. In my opinion, this is the Gangotri. This is the source of all this stuff. Let's fix it here, and then hopefully we can move on. Whatever the hate crimes that are happening, those have to be roundly condemned. But let's not make a mischief. Let's not make inadvertent mistakes, which is what it appears to be in this case. I'm willing to give that benefit of doubt. Like you said, incorrectly termed as, incorrectly named as, referred to. Yeah, that is also important, because we don't want to have the context get muddled in this whole process. Nikunj bhai, thank you so much for taking the time out of your weekend. It's a long weekend too.
Of course.
And thank you once again. And viewers will be back with more developments, because like he said, it's just passed the Congress in California. Then there is the Senate. The Assembly in California, then there is the Senate, and then it has to be signed by the governor's office. So there is still some distance to go. Thank you very much, Nikunj. And
no, namaskar. Of course. And I just want to say something, Sriji, before we end. This is not a CoHNA effort. Okay, I want to make sure that people understand this is not our effort only. It's a collective effort of many groups, Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains, that have been working on this for the past 2 years. So while we may have the resources, and I'm showing up here, I would be remiss if I said that this is not the collective effort of many organizations. So I want to give credit to all the organizations and all the people who have been working really hard on this for the past 2 years. It's thanks to all of you that we have come this far. This whole idea of swastika versus Hakenkreuz would not have been coming out there had it not been our efforts for the past couple of years. So I want to acknowledge the fact that all of our partners and all the people, Californians or New Yorkers or anywhere else who are working hard to protect and preserve our sacred symbol and dharma. It's a shout out to all of you, and kudos to all of you. If you need more information, you can reach out to us at CoHNA.org, CoHNA.org. There is information about our swastika campaign. You can get information from there. We will be publishing a bunch of more things there. And join us.
Thank you very much, Nikunji. And viewers, we would like you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And also, please don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you.